Was it the voice? Was it the fire burning in me? All of the noise turned into choirs of harmony. Left me with the pieces of forever that you broke. But since you left me alone, I've been high.
Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. I always like to start my weeks off with a good reset, but there is something about fall that makes me want to bake and do all the comfort cooking and crafting. So today that is what we're going to do. Today is actually my mom's birthday, so I'm going to be baking her a birthday cake and they're going to be coming over for dinner a little later. The cake she requested was a chocolate Texas sheet cake, so that is what we're going to be making today. Now, I have stuck to almost this exact recipe for years now, and I usually will make this cake for 4th of July. I don't really know why that worked out. I think because it makes such a large quantity, it makes a huge cake. So I make a couple of them usually for 4th of July, and they're a big hit. I will have this recipe down below in the description box if you're wanting to also make it. I know it can be kind of hard following along when I am skipping around, so it will be down below in the description box if you are looking for it. I start off by adding a couple of the dry ingredients to a large mixing bowl. So 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. Then I come over to the stove and I melt 1 cup of butter in a pan. And I kind of differ a little bit from the instructions because I feel like it's easier my way, so I do it this way, but you can of course follow the instructions down below as well. So I get the butter almost melted, and then I'll add in 4 tablespoons of heaping cocoa powder, and then once I get that melted down all the way is when I put in 1 cup of really hot water. The instructions will say boiling water, but I have noticed it doesn't make a difference, so I will add in 1 cup of hot water into this mixture once it is all melted down. I'm stirring it pretty constantly while I'm trying to melt the butter the rest of the way. See, there's only a little bit left to go. And then I'm going to pour in the water and I'll bring this mixture to a boil. Then I will let it boil for about 30 seconds before I take it off of the heat. Now that the mixture is done boiling, I don't really let it cool very long, and then I'll just pour it into the dry ingredients in the bowl. I thought about getting my stand mixer out for this, but then I'm like, you know what? This is easy enough for me to stir. That thing is so heavy, so I will just stir it by hand today, and it was no big deal. So because I'm going to be adding in some buttermilk to the recipe next, I'm wanting to stir it really well, kind of try to cool it down a little bit before I add in the buttermilk. This mixture also does do really well with melting down the sugar, so I am giving it a really good mix to cool it down, but also melt the sugar and get it all incorporated. Now it is cooled down a little bit, so I'm adding in the buttermilk that I made, and that is just a half a cup of milk with a splash of vinegar. You can also get buttermilk from the store. I just always usually make it, so that is what I have there. I'm stirring that in to get it all mixed up, and then I'm going to put in the 2 eggs and a teaspoon of baking soda. The recipe does call for a teaspoon of vanilla extract. However, I did not have any on hand, so I've never done that before. I was actually curious before I made this recipe. I was like, is that going to change the recipe at all? Because I've never not added that to a recipe before. It ended up not changing it, at least from no one was able to notice a change. So I'm not really sure, but if you know, let me know down below. I mean, is it just like a taste thing that the vanilla extract does? Is there something else? I did not notice a difference in the cake at all, but this was the very first recipe that I have ever not added vanilla in. So anyway, I have added in the eggs, the baking soda, and if you are making this right, you will add in a teaspoon of vanilla at this part as well. The cake batter is officially done at this point, so you will just pour it into, I always do a greased pan. However, I could not remember the recipe if it was a 9x13 or a 13x18 pan, so I asked Lincoln to bring out his little tape measure. He's working on measuring things in school, so I thought it would be a perfect learning experience for him to measure out the size of the pan to make sure that that was the one I was looking for. This 18 by 13 inch pan worked out perfectly, so now that we have it measured and we have confirmed the size of it, I'm going to be adding in the cake batter. And of course, you have to do a taste test, and so Lincoln came in, he was like, oh, this smells very good, and I'm like, you want to give it a try? So he tried it and he approved. Once you get the batter evenly spread throughout the bottom of the pan, you can pop that in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. While the cake is baking, I am going to start working on the icing for the top, and I always forget how much butter this recipe uses. So it uses 2 sticks of butter for the cake, and then half a stick plus, one stick plus 6 tablespoons of butter for the frosting. And I almost feel like Paula Deen whenever I'm making this, but anyway, I am again back on the stove and I'm melting down the butter. And then I'm going to be adding in 4 heaping tablespoons of cocoa powder. I'll do about 6 tablespoons of milk. Sometimes I will add in an extra tablespoon, and I've noticed that that makes it not as thick. And then if you have vanilla extract, you'll add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I usually will kind of stir it to get it really combined before I add in the 1 pound. So the recipe says 1 pound minus half a cup of powdered sugar. I am not ever doing that. I don't know why we would minus, I don't know. So it turns out when you just do the 1 pound. So I always get a 2-pound bag of the powdered sugar, and then I just half it and I put in half. I don't ever minus out the half a cup, but if you are wanting to follow the directions to a T, you absolutely can minus the half a cup from the powdered sugar. Just know that if you do the 1 pound, it works out perfectly also. When you add in the powdered sugar, you're going to want to stir it really well. preferably using a whisk if you have one, just something to break down the powdered sugar. I don't even have a whisk, which is so weird to say. So I am stirring it very well and trying to get out all the chunks. You will notice whenever I show you the finished cake that there is a couple chunks, but really there wasn't very much to really change the difference of taste or anything like that. So just know that it works very well with a whisk. I don't have one, believe it or not. So I am stirring it really well to get it nice and smooth as I possibly can. And then I actually like waiting for this frosting to cool quite a bit, and also the cake. So you can pour the frosting on right when you take the finished cake out of the oven. However, I have noticed that when you do that, they're both still really warm, and the frosting tends to go down the sides of the cake and really pool at the edges of the cake and really like leave the top of the cake pretty thin. So I have now waited for quite a while, and you notice I just spilt it over the side, which it's fine. But I have waited for quite a while for the cake to cool down and the frosting. Now they're still warm, but they're not hot at all, and that helps tremendously with having the frosting be pretty evenly distributed and staying that way on top of the cake. I think that's one reason why I really love this recipe, because you don't have to wait too long before you do any of the steps. I like how you can put the frosting on when it is still warm. I mean, you can literally do it when it is right off the stove and the cake is right out of the oven. I just choose not to do that because it seems to work out a little better. But I like how you don't have to wait for the cake to be completely cooled down before you add in the frosting and stuff like that. So it is nice, it's kind of convenient, but this is how it turned out. It is still a little wet, it has not set yet, so that is what it will look like. And then here it is once it is completely set. Now that we have the cake all done, we're going to be moving on to a little DIY project that I have been so excited about. You guys know me, I am such a sucker for scrolling on my phone and finding these DIYs or the recipes and being peer pressured into trying them. So this is another result of that. I am going to be making these orange peels, and I'm going to use cinnamon sticks to make these whimsical mushrooms. I'm so excited with how they turned out. They are everything I was hoping they would be. So I started off by taking some oranges that were kind of past anybody wanting to eat them. I cut them up. I think I did 4, and which gave me, I believe, 8 little mushroom caps. So I started off by peeling, I sliced them in half, and then I took out all the orange insides, and then I dried them out overnight on a piece of parchment paper. And then when I woke up this morning, I went ahead and I put them in the oven to dry them out the rest of the way. And I usually will just put them in the oven at about 200 degrees. I don't even know how long they were in there, maybe an hour, maybe a little more, but I just kind of checked on them every so often, and then once they were completely dried out, I took them out and let them cool down. And while I was baking the cake, that's what they were doing. They were cooling down. So now I am taking these cinnamon sticks and I cut them in thirds, I think. Maybe fourths. I got pretty big ones. So anyway, you'll cut them down to be the size that you're wanting for the little mushroom stems. And then I am just gluing them with some hot glue in the little mushroom caps, which is the orange peels. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm kind of picking which ones I want, and I was making sure that they were staying straight. So I put a little bit of glue on, and then I put them on, and that I was just holding them there to make sure that they stayed straight, and then I would add them over to the side when they were all done. I was talking to Kyle the other day about how I used to be such an artsy person when I was younger, and now I feel like I have been kind of leaning into that a little bit more, and I am loving how that's making me feel. I am so glad that I have been embracing my more artistic side lately, because it's so calming. It's so nice just to be able to sit there and do these little projects and kind of just add more whimsy and fun to your house. So I'm so glad to be doing more of these, and I'm kind of looking forward to a couple more of these fall projects that I have kind of planned for myself coming up here. I also do plan on doing more of these in particular because my kids were so excited for these. However, I was trying to just do these I wanted to do a set myself, and like I said, just kind of give myself that time. It was kind of like a me thing. So that is why I did not have them help with these. I was wanting to do it really just for me and have this as my me time, but they were all pretty excited about it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to, and it was so easy to do. So I still have some oranges left over. I still have some of the cinnamon sticks. So I think I'm going to make like a little art class with the kids and have them all paint some of these mushrooms as well. So now I have the acrylic paint out. The glue is all dry and everything, so I got the acrylic paint out. I got a couple of different colors that I was wanting to do, and I am painting the little mushroom caps. I did paint on the inside of the peel, and I'm also painting on the outside. I did like a kind of like a cream white color, dark red, and then what were the other ones? Oh, I did a dark green, almost like a moss type of color, and then a really deep green, almost like a gray black color. So I am coating those one time, and then I'm going to go in and kind of do little polka dots and stuff like that. I'm kind of curious if anyone else has seen, I feel like they're everywhere, so you really can't miss them, but how everyone is doing the paper mache, like vintage Halloween decorations. Have you seen those where I have seen a lot of them where they're using the pumpkin pails and they're putting paper mache on them and then painting them to look vintage. And that is one of the new projects that I'm wanting to do. I'm so excited about it. I actually meant to get some of the materials this weekend while I was out, and it completely did not cross my mind while I was out. So I'm wanting to do that within the next couple of weeks at least. It's something that I'm so excited about. I love vintage Halloween and Christmas decorations. So I'm kind of also on the hunt for like setting up Christmas stuff as well. I know it's September and it seems so early, but if I could, I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm so excited about all of the little DIYs and crafts and stuff. It's something that has really been calming my mind and contributing to the me time. So I'm totally excited about it, and it's something that I'm doing like fall and Halloween, but I am also looking ahead to figure out what kind of stuff I could do for Christmas. Do you guys make any Christmas crafts or anything like that for the holidays? I know a big thing is doing like homemade gifts. I love homemade gifts. I love receiving them. I love giving them. I feel like it's so personal and special, and so I absolutely love that idea. And every single year about this time, I kind of start looking into what kind of different homemade gifts I could give people and make. And so I try to look into it a little earlier so I have plenty of time to set that up and be able to put time aside to make all of these gifts. I can honestly say, though, I don't usually have that time, and I don't do too much. I know I have a couple of homemade candles to gift, but other than that, I don't really have too much going on. So anyway, if you are interested in some of the upcoming DIYs that I plan on doing, just kind of stick around. But one of the really soon ones that I'm planning on doing is those Halloween paper mache pails. I think they're so cool looking. Anyway, I have all of these painted. They're still all a little wet, so I'm just showing you them, and I'm going to let them dry. So now that they have dried, it's been a little bit. Honestly, this paint and this project, it went by really quick. I think the longest it took was the glue. The paint dried super quick. The orange peels, they even dried really quick. So I am going in and just kind of decorating them how I wanted. I'm adding little polka dots randomly and little things here and there. My kids, they were off to the side and we were kind of just talking and joking and stuff this whole time, and they were offering up some really good suggestions for these. So I am excited to do this with them because I know that they have all of these ideas already planned out for all their little mushrooms that they're wanting to make.
Crowded places, feel it sinking in. Lonely faces, say you need a friend. No matter.
I had a tiny bit of gold paint left over from a previous project, so I am brushing a little bit of gold paint around the bottom of all of the mushrooms. And I have to say that that is probably the touch that I absolutely love best. I feel like it really elevated each one of these. Anyway, these are how it turned out, and I'm so excited. It is exactly how I was picturing them, and I just love them. Now, I went ahead and I just put a little dab of hot glue on the top of all of these mushrooms, and then I strung them up. And I actually have not found a permanent place for them. I put them, as you can tell, right above the fireplace, and so that is where they are now. But I do plan on kind of keeping these around and working them into different decorations and stuff like that. So I will probably end up moving those. We are now moving on to making dinner, and I am just going to make some mashed potatoes and pot roast. Now, I mentioned that my mom and my dad are coming over, so I could not actually find one huge pot roast, so I ended up getting two of the smaller pot roasts I could find. And I'll have to look whenever I show you what poundage they are, but I know they were about like $18 is what I could find. And I have never done that much pot roast in a pot at a time, but it still ended up working out. So if you've been here a while, you know that I can be a bit of a pot roast pusher. So, I grew up not liking pot roast, and even most of my adult life, I have not liked pot roast. I think it was, like a year, if you've been here for a while. It's been like a year, 6 months. I think I found pot roast kind of pretty new into my YouTube journey, but anyway, I make it now and it's so easy, but how I make it, I absolutely love it. And while I was making it, my daughter came in the kitchen and she was like, I think your pot roast recipe is my favorite food that you make. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I feel like she's so picky, so it means a lot coming from her. So anyway, it is a super easy recipe. It is very quick, and we keep making it because it is just absolutely delicious. I do not do it in the crock pot because I feel like that dries it out, and maybe that's why I didn't like it before. So anyway, these are the pot roasts that I got. They were, let's look at the 2.27 pounds, and that's probably about the same per, 2.2, they were both 2.27 pounds. I just put salt and pepper on them, and then I'm going to sear each side of each one in the Dutch oven on the stove. Now, I was not sure how they would cook both at the same time in the pan, so I seared each one separately on each side, and then whenever I was going to put them into the oven, I went ahead and I put both of them into the pan before I put them in the oven. So I seared them separately, and then I cooked them in the oven together. But me being a pot roast pusher, all of a sudden, I feel like I kind of pushed this pot roast on my mom. She had not tried mine before, and we had been, wanting one recently. So I was just like, yeah, let's do pot roast. And I really pushed her to do pot roast for her birthday dinner. They turned out great. So I'm sure that was fine, but I can be kind of the pot roast pusher. After so many years of not liking it and then finally finding a recipe that I love, I can be kind of like, we're gonna have that, we're gonna have that. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Amber, and I am a bit of a pot roast pusher.
Say you need a friend, no matter the distance, I will always be there. No more inhibition.
Now that I have each of them seared on both sides, I'm going to put them both in the same pot, and then what I think works really well is putting in a little bit of beef broth. I wasn't really sure how much. I don't want to cover them, but I do it until they're almost covered, if that makes any sense. So it kind of will differ. I have not made it with this much meat before, so like I said, it was kind of just a guessing game. It also did take a little bit more time in the oven, but I just put in a little bit of beef broth, and then I put those in the oven at 350 until they're shreddable. So that can kind of differ depending on how much you're putting in. It took probably about 3 hours at 350 for both of those pot roasts to be shreddable and the beef stock to kind of cook down into more of a gravy. But anyway, I finished off the mashed potatoes. I made some deviled eggs and green beans on the side, and this is how dinner turned out. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.